for city council, those persons who were running for mayor, and carved out certain things that black folks needed in their communities here. And so there were commitments made at that time. So, this thing about politics has been going on a long time with black folks. And so it's an honor for me to be able to stand here. When I first got to Atlanta, about 6 months after I got here, had to do an internship. And you know where my internship was? Down under the dome, and that's where I met Senator Julian Bond and his children. He used to bring his children down to the state capitol every day. And Michael did the same thing. So they're very close. Their children are very close to the father image. Very close, children and grandchildren. But that's where I first met him. And it was how many years before they let you be seated after you were elected? 1 year. Well, he was seated by the time I got here. But there was another person that I met, and that was Lottie Watkins. She was a state representative. And so I still sit at their feet, even today, because I'm always learning something new about them. And Michael brought to me some new information about Miss Watkins. And that was that when people such as Carolyn were getting arrested, Carolyn Long Banks, they had to have some people to get them out of jail. So Lottie Watkins, among others, was one of those persons that put her money up to make sure that they got out of jail. But certainly I want to say to my Delta sister, to my former colleague on Atlanta City Council, how proud I am of my mentor. She's still my mentor, Carolyn Long Banks, former city council person for, was it 20 years? It was 17 years she was on the city council, 17 years. So I just want to say thank you. God bless you. And I'm just so glad that Councilmember Bond allowed me to be up here today. And I'd like to say one last thing, and I know it's going to happen because Carolyn is heading it up. We need to make sure that we teach our young people. Dr. King couldn't do it alone. He didn't do it alone. So we need to make sure that we teach our young people here at the university that we still have living legends that are giants that are walking among us, and they need to help to teach the younger people what they went through to make it happen for us to be able to stand here before you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Cleta. Next, I'd like to bring to the microphone the distinguished councilwoman from District 11, the Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms. And as she comes to the mic, I used to help. I've known Keisha my entire life. I used to help her across the street, literally. She was a little girl when we were in school. But she's a dynamic councilwoman, and also she's here to bring a special message on behalf of a special relative that she will talk about.
Good morning. I just received a note from my Aunt Carolyn, and when she sends you a note that you do what she says do. So I'm going to ask my cousin Kenneth Teray Robinson to please stand. This is the son of Ruby Doris Smith Robinson. How does one pay tribute to greatness? How does one remember courage? How does one honor sacrifice? I asked myself each of these questions when Councilman Bond asked me to bring remarks on behalf of my aunt, Ruby Doris Smith Robinson. Although I do not feel worthy to speak on her behalf, I am honored to stand here today as a product of all that she lived, fought, and died for. My memories of Ruby Doris Smith Robinson are shaped through the lenses of others. She was only 25 when she died, some 3 years before I was born. Despite her physical absence, her life and her legacy have always loomed larger than life for me. It's no wonder, though, because I have been told that she lived life larger than life. You know the Ruby Doris stories better than I do. Remember the time she went to Jim Crow Rock Hill, South Carolina to demonstrate, knowing that she would be jailed for over 30 days? or the time she protested in segregated Mississippi and shared a single jail cell with other 23 student freedom fighters for weeks. Or perhaps you remember when she and the other students were arrested in Atlanta, and when asked her first name, she responded freedom, and when asked her last name, she said now. Or maybe you were there when she boldly confronted Governor George Wallace on the tarmac of the Atlanta airport. Or you may even recall the one-woman sit-in that she staged in New York when she and Julian Bond and John Lewis and Fannie Lou Hamer were on their way to visit King Ture in Africa, and she and other members of SNCC were told that they were being bumped from their flight. Yes, you know the stories better than I because you, the students of the movement, were there. It has been said that Ruby Doris's attention to detail made the dramatic moments possible. Behind every march, there was a planner. Behind every demonstration, there was a leader. Behind every bond posted, there was a fundraiser. Ruby Doris Smith Robinson was all of those things and more. To some, she was a loved one. She was a daughter. She was a wife. She was a mother. She was an aunt. She was a sister. She was a friend. To others, she was a co-ed, a co-worker, an organizer, an activist, an agitator, and a leader. To all, she was dedicated, she was bold, she was brilliant, she was fearless, she was a warrior. When her work with the movement interfered with her studies at Spelman College, she dropped out of school in her junior year to devote herself full-time to the cause. She later returned to complete her studies, all the while juggling her duties as a wife, as an expectant mother, as a full-time staffer with SNCC. She was simply amazing. To many, her life and commitment to the civil rights movement are but a footnote in history. But to those of you who struggled with her in the name of freedom now, I am sure that you would agree that in just her 25 short years of life, the passion and commitment she gave to the movement changed the course of history and changed this world. As the first and only female executive secretary of SNCC, Ruby Doris confronted racism and sexism with a boldness that made men and women alike fear her and respect her. My mother-in-law, I think, described her best when she said Ruby Doris was on fire. She was fierce. I've heard her described as a woman before her time. She sported an afro long before it was popular to do so. And she chanted the phrase Black Power long before the country embraced the term. And she believed that our African ancestry was key to enduring self-esteem long before it became a fad. I don't think she was a woman before her time at all. I think she was a woman who transcended time. She had no way of knowing that her days on this earth would be so few, but she, like so many of you students of the movement, certainly disproved the theory that youth is wasted on the young. Even as her body betrayed her and she lay dying in a hospital room, I've been told that she barked orders from her bed in an effort to keep the movement organized and alive. Some say she died of cancer, and others say it was sheer exhaustion. Whatever the cause of her death may have been, we are here today because Ruby Doris Smith Robinson lived. When my Uncle Clifford, Ruby Doris's husband, was dying just a few years ago, his last wishes were very clear. He didn't want a funeral, he didn't want a memorial service. He simply wanted his ashes sprinkled over her grave. He simply wanted to be with the woman whom he had loved and lost some 40 years ago. It was then that I truly came to appreciate the phenomenal woman that she was and the impact that she had on so many lives. When I asked my cousin Ture if there was anything he wanted me to share on her behalf, he said no. Just going on the record with her name will help her be remembered. So how does one pay tribute to greatness? How does one remember courage? How does one honor sacrifice? Simply, we must remember and we must say thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bottoms. I need to make a couple of acknowledgments. We've got a couple of other I guess, BIFs, big important folks, still in the audience. I see former Councilman, Fulton County Commissioner John O'Callahan back in the back. How you doing, John? Also want to acknowledge the former councilman from District 4, Bond, James Bond. Why don't you give us a wave, James? But also want to recognize Doug Shipman from the Executive Director for the Museum of Civil and Human Rights. Doug, where are you? Okay, good to see you as well. Also, Alexis Scott. Where's Alexis? Oh, always so sharp and fashionable. Good to see you. Reverend Lawrence Calvert. Reverend, good to see you from Rush Church. Also, that's actually, I also want to acknowledge the Boone family. Where's Miss Althea Boone? The wife of Joe Boone, who opened his doors of his church when the business community wouldn't support the students, when a lot of the people in the education community wouldn't support the students, when all the big preachers downtown wouldn't support the students. Joe Boone, from right down the street, opened the doors of Rush Church and supported those students. Where's the rest of the Boone family? Let's have them stand. It's good to see you here today. And also, they dedicated a fellowship hall for Reverend Boone just yesterday. So in your proceedings after the program is over, you all should take a little wander down the street and take a look at the new sanctuary dedicated to Reverend Boone. Now we will have a selection from the Morehouse College Quartet, Dr. David Monroe, director. Gentlemen.
Oh, there's plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. There's plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. Plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. You just choose your seat and sit down. Oh, there's plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. There's plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. Plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. You just choose your seat and sit down. I would not be a liar. I'll tell you the reason why. 'Cause if my Lord he should call on me, I wouldn't be ready to die. Oh, there's plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. There's plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. Plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. You just choose your seat and sit down. I would not be a backslider. I'll tell you the reason why. 'Cause if my Lord he should call on me, I wouldn't be ready to die. Oh, there's plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. There's plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. Plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. You just choose your seat and sit down. Oh, there's plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. Plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. Plenty good room. Oh, yes, there's plenty good room. You just choose your seat and sit down. You just choose your seat and sit down. You just choose your seat and sit down.
Well, that was fantastic. Let's give them another round of applause. Since this is the Atlanta Student Movement Way, we want to acknowledge all the students that we've had participating and helping us out this morning. First and foremost, the drum section and the banner carriers from the Clark Atlanta University Mighty Marching Panthers. Let's give them a round of applause. They accompanied the marches this morning. There were many, and of course the young man, they did our benediction as a student. And we had other students from the SJs who wanted to participate but they had tests and exams this morning. And, I thought about it at first. I said, well, when you think about the sacrifices that these students made, these students, well, I'm in class, I got to do this, I got to do that. But you all sacrificed so they could sit in class. So they didn't have to march, never had to go through a colored-only door, never had to walk up to a side window to get a sandwich, never had to prepare a picnic to get on the road unless they chose to, not because they had to. So we appreciate them, and they're with us in spirit. Also, I was formerly on the board of the Ron Clark Academy, and we've got some of the students from the Ron Clark Academy here today. Why don't you fine folks stand up and let people take a good look at you. Doing an excellent job out there at the Ron Clark Academy. Next, we're going to hear from those who were actually there. Eyewitness testimony on a movement. Eyewitness testimony on change. There are many people that say that they marched with Dr. King, they participated with Dr. King, they did this with Dr. King, that with Dr. King, walked with him, marched with him, talked with him, blah, 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 blah. But these are the people who actually did it, whose sacrifices that we're actually here to honor today. And who does the bell toll for? It tolls for thee and they who are about to come before you today. Really right on this very spot. There used to be a sundry place, Yates and Milton. Unassuming, probably the most, it was a great African-American entrepreneurial effort here in the city of Atlanta. They had several locations, and right down on this corner, there was one of them. But from that small place, as Confucius was credited as saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Greatness is born out of a simple, sometimes singular act, and grows into great change, a great sweeping movement. And here to give that eyewitness testimony on that time, first up, we will have the founding chair of the Committee on Appeal for Human Rights and Atlanta Student Movement, the Honorable Mr. Lonnie King.
Thanks very much, Michael. Good morning to all of you. I'm trying to overcome the emotions that I felt when Keisha was talking about Ruby Doris Smith Robinson. Because Ruby Doris was, in fact, everything that Keisha said and even more. But Ruby Doris was not the only one. And as chairman, I think I would be remiss in not recognizing some other people who actually made great contributions that maybe you don't know about. But first of all, let me ask all of the Committee on Appeal for Human Rights veterans who are here, would you please stand? And I want to especially mention two people. We developed a strategy because for how we were going to run this movement, because we had 4,000 students here and we couldn't take 4,000 students downtown every day. So what we had to do was to develop a two-tiered strategy. That is that we had to have a cadre of students who would keep the movement alive every day. And then we have these grand events, marches and what have you, which would involve all of the students. And there were no more than maybe 10, 15 persons who really did that kept it alive for the movement. And one young man I want to call off here gave up his education to be there every day. Every day. to keep this movement alive. And that's Frank Holloway. Would you please stand, Frank? And Frank had two partners who have now gone on, Willie Paul Berrien and P.B. Watts. Those three persons were there every day for the picket lines. Another person I want to mention is Michael Bond's mother, Alice. I made the decision for us to move on the A&P stores with a boycott. So the committee backed me on it, and we started a boycott on the one on Edgewood Avenue across from the municipal market called the Curb Market. And in the summer of 1960, while we were trying to keep the movement going until the masses came back to town, Alice Bond, please stand up, she was there all summer long. Would you please stand and take a bow? Every day, every day. So Michael, it is no accident that you are a movement baby. We want to thank you, though, Michael, also for leading this effort and getting the other city council people and the mayor to support this effort. We said in 1960 that we had to end this thing called segregation. And in doing so, we had to challenge the presidents of the colleges here, not directly but indirectly. They had a dual responsibility. They had to protect us at the same time they knew, because they were black, that they also were being deprived. So they had to run with the foxes and chase with the hounds. And we had to do the same thing, because if we didn't do it right, some of us might get out of school, put out of school. And I'm here today, I was able to finish Morehouse because of Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, who refused to